Joining me now on this episode of Locally Sourced CP is the voice of the El Paso Chihuahuas, Mr. Tim Hagerty. Sir, thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, good to see you, Ray.
Tim, I can't thank you enough for being on the show. I've been I've been part of the organization when it started. I was on the video production team for a while, for about 5-6 years. Known you for a little bit, and just I appreciate you coming on and just talk a little bit about Chihuahuas baseball and everything that you do, as a broadcaster, because I know you've done other stuff. You do other stuff besides, just being the voice of the Chihuahuas.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, Ray, and appreciate what you do with your local show. So anything El Paso related, I always say yes.
Oh, Tim, thank you so much. I mean, you've been doing it for we're talking right now about 19 seasons now. You've been in the broadcasting biz. Have all those been like involved with baseball, or how did you get started in the business?
I got started in high school. I grew up in Massachusetts in a town called Canton outside Boston. And my high school had the town cable TV access, the cable access TV station right there in the building. So they had this opportunity for kids to host a show,
awesome.
to do play-by-play of games. And I instantly was hooked by that. I could tell that I was kind of different than the other kids as far as my interest in it. There were times I was trying to duck away from track practice to go in and edit video and edit audio. I loved everything about it. The technical side, preparing for a game, preparing for a show, how to write things. And when I was doing play-by-play, it actually would air in the town. So I was also getting feedback as well.
Oh, nice.
How do you handle it when a kid comes up to you and says, "Oh, you do a great job"? But also, how do you handle it when someone says something critical? Which to this day is important, the mental side of being a sportscaster, because some people think you're great, but then maybe there's a call that you didn't handle perfectly, and it turns out that becomes a viral call on Twitter because it was a big name player or something like that, and you think, oh, that could have come out better. So anyway, that was a long answer, but I was lucky enough to get started in high school, and then I targeted a college in Vermont that was really specific for broadcasting. It's now called Northern Vermont University. And from there, got a job with Idaho Falls. That was my first job, 2004, Idaho Falls, Idaho.
Oh, wow. And then just, I can see the passion you talk about, the business. Like I don't do like on air stuff, but I mean, I kind of feel you with like the way like preparing for like either a photo shoot or video production. Like I love that part. Like I love being able to plan it out and just getting ready to shoot and just like starting to shoot. And I like doing it so much, and I can kind of like relate a little bit to you, but I mean, I know that's like a whole new like world in the broadcast biz, and prepping for a game, knowing stats, getting to know the players' names. Like that's the one thing with me, like when you all like talk about players or say players' names that I couldn't even spell if I had it in front of me, and then you guys pronounce it correctly almost like all the time. Like what's the practice behind that, if any?
I think first off, it's really important when it comes to home players to go up and ask them, how do you say your name? I've had players, for example, this happened this year where, as you probably know, you probably have friends in El Paso with our Hispanic culture there that are named Angel, and some go by Angel, some go by Angel.
Mm-hmm.
And I went up to one of the Chihuahuas players who has that spelling of his name, and I say, do you say your name Angel or Angel? And he said, it's the same name. I said, well, I know, but what do you say? He's like, Angel. But I think he thought like, here's this guy who isn't Hispanic, me, and he doesn't know how to say my name. But I think even though that was kind of an awkward interaction, that you have to do that because there are times where you make assumptions. The Chihuahuas this year have 2 players named Angel, but one goes by Angel, one goes by Angel. And then the important thing with visiting teams is to check in with the other team's announcer or public address announcer or a PA announcer or PR person to confirm things.
Yeah.
El Paso recently played Round Rock. El Paso has a player, Tirso Ornelas, who's from Mexico. Same spelling. Round Rock has a player, Jonathan Ornelas, who's from Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
same spelling of the last name, but you pronounce it two different ways. Now you could show up to the park late, assume, and just go with what you think for those names, or you could go and you could ask the player, and in the case of the other team, ask the other team's announcer to get it right.
Yeah.
I think every announcer has a couple over the years where they later found out they were saying it wrong, whether it was their fault or whether they got some bad info. And that's a terrible feeling.
Mhm.
I mean, these players, so few of them make it to AAA. They have family and friends watching. And that's embarrassing if you ever get a name wrong. It has happened to me a couple times in 19 years, and I feel bad. And I've apologized to players when it happened.
That's cool. Like, yeah, I mean, there's just like so many components to what you do, and like you said, you want to make it, you want to get it right. You don't want to say a name wrong, and it's the same thing. Like I know what you mean about, especially with the Angel. One of my coworker, his name's Angel. He pronounces it Angel, but everyone calls him Angel. But like a lot of people, like, you know, it doesn't offend him or anything, but it's just like just that attention to detail that you as a professional do. It just, you know, makes the players feel great. And like you said, the family members, you know, it makes them appreciate what you do. And you take it, especially now, and everyone knowing that they take the time out of your day to go make sure you get the name right.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. I have a friend in El Paso, and his name is Jorge. But when he introduced himself to me initially, he said, George. I later found out he goes by Jorge, and I wanted to tell him, I can handle it. I say thousands of Hispanic names every summer. I can handle Jorge.
And I think I know who you're talking about too. No, I mean, Tim, I mean, you're basically like a working machine. I mean, you're not only just like you always don't always just do the broadcast. I mean, you do during the season, but I mean, you're also a writer. You write articles, you join other broadcasts to talk about other sports, things like that. But you're also an author, correct?
That's right. I have a new book out this year. Thanks for asking. I have one nearby right here if
Oh,
your
yes.
audience wants to see it. Tales from the Dugout. Oh,
Oh,
it's
there
like
you
a mirror on Zoom. Yeah.
go.
1001 humorous, inspirational, and wild anecdotes from minor league baseball. I had to read the title. The publisher, who I think did a great job, but they picked the title, they picked the layout and everything. So I wanted to get those words right. Humorous, inspirational, and wild. But anyway, it's a really visual book. So for a lot of the stories I wrote, they have illustrations in there. There's the player who ate 24 eggs before a game. But my favorite part about baseball has always been the stories. Major leagues, minor leagues, everything. And in 2012, I was researching something else, and I came across this 1888 Texas League game in Austin that got delayed when a wild bull ran on the field. And that individual story taught me that there were just so many baseball stories out there that a lot of sports fans don't know about. So I created this document, and over the course of 10 years, I would add to it, current stories when I saw things, also looking through newspaper archives, old baseball guides. Whenever I was talking to a scout or an old manager and they mentioned a funny story, I'd make a note of that. And over the course of 10 years, all of a sudden I have hundreds and hundreds of these stories, and put together a book. And what I hoped was a really visual book. Every story kind of has like a quick headline at the top, and
cool.
then many have illustrations. That's the player who got released because he was reading comic books in the dugout. So that gives you kind of a feel for what's in there. And yeah, it's been really exciting. It's available on Amazon right now at a discount. It's available in some bookstores, but not all. But it's been exciting to get the feedback and see that Amazon number move up and down. I try to tell myself I can only look at it once in the morning and once at night. Otherwise, it becomes like a compulsion looking at it throughout the day to see how the book is selling that day. So I try to really keep away. You know, it's like social media. There's a lot of strength to it, but I try to govern myself. I try not to look too much.
Not hitting that refresh button all the time, huh?
Exactly.
Well, Tim, I mean, I'm you have so many like stories, I'm sure, that you could tell. I mean, like you said, you have written down in the book and stuff. Is there one story that stands out the most that you'd want to mention, like real quick, that maybe something here that happened in El Paso that comes to mind?
Yeah, out of the 1001 stories in the book, there's about a dozen, maybe 20 that were from games that I called firsthand. And one that comes to mind in El Paso was our wiener dog delay. You might have even been working this game in the control room. 2015, the Chihuahuas and Wiener Schnitzel, I think it was, had this between innings wiener dog race. And 4 out of the 5 dogs ran where they were supposed to, but one of them got creative, went rogue, and began scampering all around the field in fair territory. And the game had to be delayed a couple of minutes as the Chihuahuas chased down this wiener dog. It's running by players. It ended up on Good Morning America and all sorts of national news headlines. And just the other day, I was looking at this video for the first time in a while, and I noticed something that I had forgotten, that Corey Seager, now a star with the Texas Rangers, is one of the Oklahoma City players that the wiener dog runs by. So this guy's been World Series MVP for the Dodgers, and he's also dealt with a wiener dog delay in his career.
It happened here in El Paso.
Exactly. And to me, that's the fun of minor league baseball, is we still have such high quality level of play, AAA, one step from the majors. But crazy things like that happen sometimes too. You're much more likely to see a wiener dog delay in El Paso than you are at Yankee Stadium.
That's so true. That's so true. I mean, I think like I've had connections with baseball in El Paso for a long time. It's been some pretty historic stuff happen here in El Paso, and I think the Chihuahuas is right up there with them, being coming back from when the Diablos left town and everything like that. And I mean, I've been around it since Dudley Field, back in like way back when. I remember going to the last game in '89, and I even have some other history with it. My grandfather was groundskeeper at Dudley Field for a very long
Wow.
time when it first opened. He was there for about 30 years. One of the cool things I remember from him is I even found the article that was written about it. He was watching a Yankee game and was wondering about the pitcher's mound. And he actually, since there's no social media, he had to write a letter to the Yankees head grounds chief for the measurements of their pitching mound, so he can copy the pitching mound that they had at Yankee Stadium. So he got the letter back, and he put the same measurements, as the same dimensions
Wow.
of the pitcher's mound from Yankee Stadium, because he wrote the letter. I just thought that was so cool, and just
Yeah, what a great story.
it's just like I think like baseball in El Paso has such a rich history. Like we've had Mickey Mantle come play here,
Yeah, Maze.
and then I mean, just you guys being a part of it too with the Chihuahuas and stuff like that. It's just so cool. Makes me feel proud to be in El Paso, and especially with stuff like this happening.
Yeah, I love that story. I wish I got to go to Dudley Field. I've heard so much about it. And I tried to incorporate that into my book, a bunch of the wild Dudley Field stories that I found, like Paul Strelzin, the public address announcer, being thrown out of a game. His name came up so much when I moved
Yeah.
here. You ever hear about Paul Strelzin? He used to scream at the umpires in the microphone. Um, and also Jim Paul, who was, running that team for years, and the different promotions he'd come up with. There's a great illustration in my book of the time that the Diablos at Dudley Field set a world record for the largest banana split between games of a doubleheader. I
Wow.
actually found a newspaper advertisement from the El Paso Herald-Post telling kids to come out between games of the doubleheader. They set up this massive banana split. They handed out free spoons, and we gave the descriptions in there of the thousands and thousands of pounds of bananas and ice cream and whipped cream. That's, as you would know, that's the type of thing that would happen at Dudley Field.
Yeah. Yeah, no, yeah, it was cool. And then like I think everyone's favorite was like when they had 10-cent hot dogs on Sundays. So that was a big thing back then too.
Yeah, I got to go on MLB Network and talk about my book, and Matt Vasgersian was the host. And as you probably know, Vasgersian called play-by-play for the El Paso Diablos, and he talked about the 10-cent discount hot dogs, and he talked about how a family would pull up in the minivan, buy 25 hot dogs, go back in the car, leave well before the game started, and get a discount dinner for the night. That,
Yeah.
I mean, that's among the thousands and thousands of hot dogs that they'd sell.
Yeah, it was good times, man. It was good times at that place, and it was I have a lot of memories from there when I was a kid, and it was just so cool, just so cool to have that. And then honestly, just you can't say enough about Southwest University Park, man. That place is just it's ever since it's been built, it's been one of the most beautiful minor league baseball parks, and probably the states.
Yeah, it's stunning. It's unbelievable. And I love to continue to hear from new players or scouts going there for the first time, people that are there for the first time. Many say it's the best in the minor leagues.
Mhm.
And that fan enthusiasm that took place at Dudley Field and then Cohen Stadium has translated to Southwest University Park. I still remember broadcasting the first ever game at Southwest University Park, April 28th, 2014. And in the middle of the game, there's a couple of Chihuahuas on base, and the fans began chanting, "We want to hit." And I'm looking around at the digital screens and nothing is cueing them to do this. And I love that. That was people like you that chanted that as a kid, came out to the game, and they brought that to Southwest University Park. I love that.
It's been so cool. Like I mean, I appreciate everything that Chihuahua's organization has done for the city and bringing baseball back. And I can't believe it's already been they've been here. We've been a part of it. It's been a part of El Paso for so long already.
Yeah, neither can I. A couple of things have happened to me this summer that reminded me. One time I was in a store getting a new phone,
Hmm.
and the woman, trying to think of how old she said she was, but as your phone is loading and you're transferring from one to the other, you have about 10 minutes where you're just kind of sitting there talking. And we were talking about the Chihuahuas. And she said, "Oh yeah, um, I remember I was in middle school when the team arrived. I was at one of the first few games." And I thought, when the Chihuahuas came, this girl was in middle school, and now she's giving me a new phone. But it makes sense.
Yeah.
She was 13 or 14. Now she's in her early 20s. And I thought that was really cool because it taught me there is this generation of El Pasoans that look at Southwest University Park the way you look at Dudley Field, and now they're becoming young adults.
Hmm.
A part of me does say it's gone by fast, but then sometimes in my job doing media relations for the team, looking into some old rosters, we get a lot of photo requests from different newspapers around the country from a former Chihuahua if they're writing a "Where Are They Now" type story.
Hmm.
And I'll go through our photos and I'll say, it does seem like a long time ago that this guy played here. Like, oh, Jake Gobert. Wow, I hadn't thought about him in a while. Um, but that's really cool as well. We now have just so many former players that you can click on a random box score in the major leagues. And if it's a Pirates versus Blue Jays game, most of the time there is a former Chihuahua on one of those teams.
That's so cool. I mean, it's a great team to come through, and just the way like the team has just evolved, man. It's just so cool how it is here and how the team has been. I mean, I just wanted to ask like another question. Like, I know people assume that you just do broadcasts for the Chihuahuas. I mean, what do you do in the off season, if I can ask? What are some of the things you do for the organization while you guys are in the off season?
I am a year-round employee for the team. So during the off season, I do corporate sales with working with businesses and developing a partnership with the Chihuahuas that way. There's also some media relations duties. Various things come in when it comes to the stat packs, the rosters, the game notes, media requests. That's kind of a general thing, but most days, really throughout the year, there's some sort of media relations related inquiry, whether that's a photo request. In recent years, I've also become the Chihuahuas liaison for Major League Baseball and its rules experiments. This is a job that really didn't exist 5 years ago, but with the automatic ball strike system, with the pace of play pitch clock, really a focus on those two things. We now have new employees at the park, and whether they work for the Chihuahuas or MLB and those jobs, when it comes to scheduling, when it comes to everything that comes with kind of overseeing that, there's various decisions to be made. It's like people joke about robot umpires and that they might replace the home plate umpire with a robot.
Right.
First off, the home plate umpire is still there to call the balls and strikes via his earpiece or her earpiece. We do have a female AAA umpire.
Oh, that's cool.
And also to make calls at the plate. But in addition to that, there are more Major League Baseball employees at AAA parks than there have ever been. So the automatic ball strike system that AAA uses, when people call it robot umpires and that it might
Mhm.
eliminate jobs, it's the opposite. It has added dozens and dozens of
Oh,
jobs.
nice.
Um, anyway, that's another long answer. But yeah, I'm kind of the liaison where Major League Baseball will email me when it comes to certain credentials or certain procedures when it comes to those new rule experiments.
Oh, that's cool. I mean, that's just so cool. Like I know everyone like always talks about, the robot umpires and things like that. And that's just so cool to hear that, it's not going to take away jobs, it's going to add them because you need so many people to run the like software, things like that. And that is so cool.
I agree. And it's been fun for us because the pitch clock in 2022 is when it was really enforced. That's when Major League Baseball made this a priority in AAA.
Mhm.
And to see that and to see the different things they observed, and then to see it added into the major leagues this year, you do feel like you're on the ground floor of baseball history, where AAA games last year were really the petri dish for Major League Baseball to study how this is going to go. And by the way, among concerns after there was some spring training tension with the pitch clock, I mean, as we tape this in early August, I haven't seen a pitch clock controversy in the major leagues in weeks.
Yeah.
I think, like a lot of people predicted, there'd be some bumps early, but then everyone would get used to it. And it looks like that has happened.
Yeah. I think I was reading the other day that the average major league game is like almost about 2.5 hours now because of the pitch clock.
And you're getting the same amount of pitches, of balls in play. You're getting everything. And
yeah.
I love baseball and its history more than anybody.
Mhm.
But when people would say the pitch clock has changed the game, to me, it actually brought the game back to normal. When
Mhm.
you and I were kids, there was a rhythm and a pace to it
Yeah.
that I think got away from the game by 2021-ish. That if you put on an old game from even the early 2000s, this is what the times of the games were. This is
Yeah.
what the time between pitches was. So to me, it's actually brought the game back to normal.
Yeah, I think we could do a whole nother show on the rules and the pitch clock too, because I mean I've had so much to say. I think the only thing I was kind of against was the ban on the shift, because I think like especially Major League Baseball, if you're a major league player professional, you should be able to hit opposite field. But I mean that's just me. That's just me. But I mean I agree. I mean I was a little worried about the time clock, but I mean it's I think it's helped the game too. I think you're right. It's brought the game back.
Yeah, and the interesting thing with the shifts that made me come around on it, and I'm happy to discuss all of it. I love this discussion. So even if we disagree on every rule, that's fine. I enjoy the conversation. Um, was teams were getting so knowledgeable when it comes to their shifts. They knew if Ray Jackson's coming up, this is where he's most likely to hit it. So you were seeing a lot of balls hit right at players.
Mhm.
And Theo Epstein, Major League Baseball's consultant on this matter, brought up a good point and said we're losing players running after balls, making diving plays, making
Yeah.
athletic plays in the field. Um, he said, I want a game determined by if that second baseman can run and go get that ball, as opposed to a game being determined by which team's front office had a better algorithm.
Mhm.
And when he said that, to me, that's the benefit of the shift restrictions, is that we're seeing more running and diving plays now.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, that I mean, it does make it, it makes it look like it was back, especially like, you had, Ozzie Smith playing shortstop and making those diving amazing plays, and players like Cal Ripken, Derek Jeter making those awesome plays. It is. I mean, I think, my wife sitting with me watching a few games here and there just like noticed like, hey, this isn't taking us long. But I mean, it's brought the game back. You're right.
Yeah, and a lot of people bring up the time of game, and I do love the fact that especially younger fans can be at the ninth inning and it's 9:30 and it's not 10:30.
Yeah.
To me, the biggest thing is the pace of play. Not just the total time of game, but we're seeing less time between balls in play.
Mhm.
Um, the commissioner used the phrase pace of action as a different thing than time of game. When you watch a random inning, what are you seeing compared to 2021?
Yeah. No, I mean it's I mean like you and I said we could talk about this all day. Like this is so awesome. I mean, just just to touch base, Kim, Tim, it's just you been with the Chihuahuas since 2000. Oh shoot, where did I write that down at? Since they it's 2004, right?
So I moved in the fall of 2013, and then the first
13.
game was April 2014.
Yeah, 2000. No, I'm sorry, I had the wrong. It was my fault. I had the wrong date written down, and this hasn't.
No,
It's
no,
not the first time something like this has happened on me on the show. So sorry. Um, it's just like so cool.
2004 was my first season overall. So you
Yes,
actually
yes,
were right.
that's what I
Yeah,
wrote down. I meant to write down that your
right.
first season was sorry, but I mean, Tim, you've done so much for the city, so much for this team. You've written a book. I mean, you're the voice. I think you're the voice not only of the Chihuahuas, but probably one of the voices of El Paso. Everyone knows who you are, what you sound like. I can't thank you enough for coming on the show. And you do have some social media. Just anywhere that where can we follow you at and things like that.
Well, thanks so much for your kind words there. That does mean a lot. I mean, I'm about to broadcast my 106th game this year, and
Oh
sometimes
wow.
things like that, things like your comment can really kind of add a little pickup to my step. So I appreciate that. El Paso is a great gift to my wife and my son and I. Just an amazing community that we love. So believe me, yeah, people that have listened to one game or hundreds of games, it just means tremendously to me. As far as my social media, yeah, I'm at TD Hagerty. You can listen to the broadcast on the 600 ESPN El Paso, on the Chihuahuas website, or on the radio station's website. And the new book, Tales from the Dugout, you can grab it on Amazon. It's also in the Chihuahuas team store, which was very nice of them. And they tell me it's doing well on there, which is very exciting.
Awesome, Tim. Thank you so much. I'll make sure I'll include all that information in the description below. That way people can hit you up on your social media,
Oh, cool.
buy your book. Dude, I can't I'll be honest, like I haven't had a chance to pick it up, but I need to pick it up. I want to read it, man. It sounds interesting, especially with all the illustrations, things like that. Is there anything else you'd like to say or add before we end today, Tim?
No, I appreciate your plans to buy the book. Everyone helps a lot. And thanks for having me on your show. And yeah, please stay in touch.
I will, sir. I will. Thank you so much. Have a good game, and we'll talk to you soon, sir.
Thank you, Ray.
Thank you.